What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Fox Sports The Gambler. My name is Sean Barnard here with Sam Oshtry for this edition of Picks and Roll, talking all things from the Week 4 NFL slate, and we got a lot to get into here. Sam, how we doing? How we feeling? Coming off a nice tie. Nothing fires me up on a Monday like, staying up past midnight to watch a 40-40 draw, but how about you?
That was a great football game, too.
What?
I mean, one of the better games of the year. Sucks it ends in a tie, so we have to change that rule. That's just
Yeah.
like no game can end in a tie at this point. But it was a great football game, and then it's just like, all right, anticlimactic ending. It is what it is. But it was a great day of football yesterday and Saturday. We don't ever talk about college football on Mondays, even though we're both big fans. What an embarrassment Penn State is. I mean, Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, and Arch Manning have probably cost himself tens of millions of dollars just in the last month, in the last 4 weeks, because of how awful those guys have been. And just another pathetic performance from Penn State at home, at your whiteout. Yeah, we don't talk college football, but I had to go on that tangent.
Was the knee down, Sam Oshtry?
Was the knee down?
Yes, of the Oregon ball carrier there.
I don't believe so.
I didn't think so either.
I
That's
don't
to
believe
me.
so.
And I guess this is kind of a weekend takeaway is just refereeing as a whole, but like I can't believe that they overturned that on the field. The targeting call that did not get called
Yep.
there was insanity there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Penn State is the most predictable team in all of college football. That every single year you can get their schedule and tell you exactly which games they're going to win and which games they're going to lose. That they are going to beat up on all the non-power 5 teams. They're all going to beat up on the small dogs there. And then they're just never going to have that upset there. The only perennial top 10 team to never beat other top 10 teams there. But it's Penn State. It's James Franklin. It is what it is.
I'm a fool, and you called it. You were on the right side, but I'm a fool for somehow believing that this, because I didn't think this was like some insane pressure spot for James Franklin. So
They
I was
all
like,
are, though.
yeah. I mean, anytime he plays a good team, like a really good team, he's not capable of getting his team ready to win, whatever it is. But it's a reflection of him at this point. Like there's nothing else to say. He can't beat a team that's another good opponent. He just can't. He recruits really well, gets a lot of talent, so they'll always be one of the better teams. But he can't beat another good team. And I'm a fool for believing that it would be different this year. I thought the crowd and the atmosphere at a whiteout night game would do it, but obviously it didn't. Oregon's a hell of a team. I mean, Dante Moore is a Heisman contender at this point, and they're so talented. Offensive line, they are so talented offensively. But I just thought Penn State was right there with them, and the home factor would get it done. But it obviously did not, and another embarrassing loss for Penn State. They'll be in the College Football Playoff even if they lose to Ohio State. But not much else is happening for that team. Drew Aller is just not a guy you can trust, even though he's supposed to be this most talented quarterback in Penn State history. They tell us.
Highest recruit in Penn State history.
Yeah, and he's not even close to a first rounder. I mean, how he falls apart in big moments in big games, and his accuracy is so off. It's hard to fathom how Penn State just continues to botch every single big game scenario that they're in.
Drew Aller is a get your general manager fired type of quarterback. You can fall in love with the intangibles, the raw arm. And I honestly think this is a takeaway across the board as well. Too many people talk themselves into the raw traits and skills over a guy that knows how to play football. The Aller to me is sort of one of the, you can see the prototype, you can squint and see the vision. Anthony Richardson is an example I'll throw out as well. If you fall in love with the raw traits and skill sets, there has not been a single day where Anthony Richardson has been a polished quarterback, and to roll the dice and believe that that's just going to change overnight is crazy to me. But yeah,
we talked about that in studio on Saturday, where we both said that the quarterback evaluation has completely changed. Like these big hands, how tall you are, all these things that people used to look at don't really matter that much anymore. Like your arm strength doesn't. If you can throw the ball 60 yards down the field, who cares? Congrats. You want a cookie? Like that doesn't matter anymore, and it shouldn't for quarterback evaluators. And I don't think it does anymore. It's all processing. It is all mental. And those things that you can teach to an extent, but either you have them or you don't. And that's what determines if you're going to be a good NFL quarterback. And it's pretty obvious Drew Aller does not have that. And he won't be a first rounder. I think everyone in the NFL has recognized that he will not be a first rounder this year.
I don't think he should be. I'm not ready to say 100% that he won't yet.
I mean, there's just no quarterbacks. I don't know if there'll be any first round quarterback this year. There always is one or two, even in a bad class, but there is just nobody who's impressing any 2026 scouts.
Yeah, and teams will get desperate, so we'll see who climbs the ladder and who looks good in the underwear Olympics and all the workouts and all those kind of things leading up to things. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a takeaway across the board that I think the quarterback play has been incredibly disappointing in college football. I will say Dante Moore, I think that's my front runner for the Heisman at this stage of the game. I have not looked how the odds shifted after this weekend. Do you have any take there?
I think he deserves to be a front runner. He's played legitimate competition. That offense has been unbelievable. When John Mateer goes out and he gets injured for Oklahoma, obviously he was the favorite. He can't win anymore because he's going to miss at least a month. Carson Beck deserves more respect for Miami. That Miami defense is really good too.
Yeah,
so maybe that's why he's not getting it. But Carson Beck is right there for the Heisman contention, and Fernando Mendoza for Indiana. He's been unbelievable too. We have to see Indiana play a little better competition the rest of the year, which they will on their schedule. But he's been incredible.
Yeah, will be interesting how it plays out. But I like that we mixed in a little college football here. I do want to get it over the NFL slate, and I figure you probably want to start the way that we've started all these previous episodes here, which is talking about Justin Herbert's MVP campaign.
Yeah, you're really battering that drum. You really want to start here. If you really want to start here, we can, because Daniel Jones wasn't his best game yesterday. I think we should start with the Eagles, but you take it away.
I was just, I know you're very passionate about the Herbert MVP campaign, so I like to.
It definitely took a hit yesterday. That's for sure.
So yeah, I guess we'll table that. We'll start with the Eagles here. We'll get around the league eventually because I think I have my worst loss of the day already picked out for that conversation.
Wonder what it'll be.
Let's talk some Philadelphia Eagles. So the biggest story is they remain undefeated, 4-0. The final score being 31-25 here. The Eagles being outscored 19-7 in the second half there, but the bottom line is they got the job done. I thought the first half of football was the most impressive that they looked all season. Second half, not quite the same story, but a win is a win has sort of been my message on here, and I'm gonna kind of feel the same way about that. What's your takeaway from what we saw from the Eagles yesterday?
Every game this year, there's been one half where they've looked like the best team in football and the team that's going to run away with the Super Bowl. And there's been another half in every single game, whatever half it is, where they don't even look like they're a playoff team.
It's really
it's really bizarre because we know the talent. We know how good the coaching staff is on this roster. We know what they are, and that's why they're 4-0, and that's why they still should be considered the number one team in the NFL at this point. But it's bizarre how they show flashes. They show like a quarter or two of incredible offense, whether it's their passing game, of great offensive line play where they get some good blocks for Saquon Barkley to break off for runs. And then there's other moments where they can't even complete a pass and they're constantly 3 and out. And same with the defense. And their best unit's been the special teams. And we're now back-to-back weeks where they blocked either a field goal or a punt for a touchdown. And that's been the difference in both those games. So their best unit's been the special teams, which when you have special teams as a weapon like that, it's really hard to beat a team, especially one as talented as the Eagles. But it's just been a bizarre season where they've shown flashes of what we know they're capable of. And then they've shown other halves where they look like a completely different team. And they're not even trusting Jalen, and they're not trusting the passing game in moments. So I'm not concerned because they're 4-0. And as you build an identity and as you want to build your identity, it's good to win those games as you do. Last year, they were 2-2 going into week 5, and they didn't even have an identity, and everyone thought the sky was falling. They're still trying to build and discover their identity this year, but they're doing it as they're winning games, and they're 4-0 this year. So I'm not concerned at all, like maybe some other people were, but it has been bizarre of how good they've been for stretches and how awful they've been for others.
Yeah, the stark difference from half to half that we're now seeing like on a consistent basis here is really strange to me. Like, I don't get it. Like, I was really encouraged yesterday in that first half thinking, okay, the light bulb has gone on. The switch has been flipped here, that they've figured out how this offense is supposed to run. Then they come out in the second half and it was just elementary stuff once again. We're talking trying to force the ball to A.J. Brown, trying to just win after Saquon looks like he banged up his ankle, just giving him to the ball again. Like, there's a lot of stuff that just does not make a ton of sense to me, but I am going to rest on the win is a win is at the end of the day. So they are 4-0, and that Bucs team, I give a ton of credit. I think that's a good Tampa Bay Bucs team. That, to me, is their most impressive victory of the season so far.
Yeah, the Bucs are really good, and I mean, the Chiefs was a really impressive victory too because of the Rams were too, the comeback, and they every one of their wins has been really impressive. The Bucs are really good. They're definitely going to be a playoff team. And it's not only that, it's how much the Eagles have struggled in Tampa Bay. They lost 6 out of the last 7 in Tampa Bay. We know what happened last year in week 4 heading into the bye when the Bucs just railroaded the Eagles in Tampa. So the Eagles switched some things up. Obviously, their travel schedule was different. They went down to Tampa a day before. So they switched some things up to kind of change the vibes in Tampa Bay, and it obviously worked in the first half. But it's honestly been like situational, weird play calling that's led to the kind of the poor offense that we've seen. Where last week against the Rams, they were down huge. They were down like 3 scores, and they had to throw the ball in the second half. And then we saw the passing offense get going. And it was like, all right, let's trust Jalen more. We know what he's capable of with his arm. When you put the ball in his hands, we know what he's capable of. And you saw that switch in the first half of this game yesterday, where they were letting Jalen cook. I believe he started 15 for 17. He was completing passes 15 plus yards down the field, short passes. He was on the money. That was one of the best Jalen passing halves I've seen from him in a while. So they trusted him finally. And then they get into the situation where they want to play conservative in the second half with a big lead instead of continuing to trust your quarterback. So it's just like the play calling has to be more consistent. That's what it has to be. Your running game hasn't been there for whatever reason. Maybe Saquon is, I don't want to say not 100%, but he's a little tired.
He's also getting hit behind the line of scrimmage.
He is, and that was going to be my second point for sure. The offensive line has not been as good. They are not getting near as much space and push on these run plays like they were last year. And part of that's injuries, right? Lane Johnson went down yesterday, and who came? Fred Johnson has to come in and replace him. Tyler Steen goes down yesterday. Matt Pryor has to come in and replace him. And so it's been offensive line injuries that have contributed to that too. But the running game hasn't been as good. So trust the passing game, because we have a great passing game, and you know the run factor will always be there with Saquon in the backfield. So it's just been inconsistent play calling where you want to see them put a full game of a consistent play calling sheet together. And they just haven't done that for whatever reason. A lot of it's been situational, but I still wanted them to trust Jalen for 2 halves.
Yeah, I totally agree there. And like there was a play or a drive in the fourth quarter here where it really clicked. Like, it's time for them to milk some clock. And that drive lasted a grand total of 12 seconds before they were giving the ball back to the Bucs. And like, that just can't happen. The running game as a whole, like, I do think it all comes back to the offensive line that I know we've talked for years about this being such a significant strength of this Eagles team. To just call it like a spade here, they have not been a strong unit to start the season. That the offensive line has not imposed themselves the way that we're accustomed to seeing. I do think injuries are the driving force of that Cam Jurgens is banged up as well. We've seen a bunch of guys go in and out. That this isn't like this team at its best from an offensive line perspective. But the bottom line is, like, it's looked a little bit like Saquon Barkley running behind the Giants offensive line all those years for the amount of times he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage and that kind of thing. Just let Jalen Hurts rip it, man. Like, this dude could win MVP of the league if they allow him to sling it. Like, he can put up those type of numbers. He can lead this team to that type of record. And we're already well on our way. We have a 4-0 record. And like, he's done it. Whenever he's asked, he finds a way to get the job done. And I'm not sure what more the Eagles need to see to be convinced to just trust this dude, because he's answered every single question that's been put in front of him.
I think a lot of people are concerned about, I mean, we all have this collective PTSD from the 2023 collapse when we were winning games and we started out with a 10-1 record and we knew we weren't a good team. And then, of course, the collapse, it all boiled up, and the collapse happened when we lost 6 of our last 7 games and the season ended up being a disaster. So I think when we win games ugly now, we have this collective PTSD where it's like, it's not pretty enough. That wasn't good enough. Like, we showed instances why we might start losing games. But let's look at some of our wins here. I mean, we beat the Chiefs, who are, after yesterday's win against the Ravens, they're right back in it, has one of the best teams in the NFL. The Rams, an NFC contender, and then who am I blanking on that we played yesterday?
The Bucs.
The Bucs, obviously. That's just an absolute mental brain fart. And then the Bucs yesterday, a team that's going to beat the NFC, be in the NFC conversation. So when you look at the schedule, I'm not upset that we're racking up wins, even if they're a little uglier, because what we showed yesterday, what we showed against the Rams, is that it's not that we can't facilitate a good passing game. It's not that Jalen Hurts isn't capable of throwing the ball and slinging the ball a ton as a high volume passer. It's just we don't do it for whatever reason. But we can. We showed we can in the first half against the Rams, the second half against the Rams, and the first half against the Bucs. We showed how great this passing game can be. So I trust Jalen, and we need to see the coaching staff and the play calling trust Jalen even more. But it's not like we can't do it. We've shown we can. And the defense has been solid. Not worried there, even with some injuries that we've dealt with yesterday. Jahad Campbell's just been phenomenal. He was incredible yesterday. That interception, some huge tackles. He was great as a rookie. You love to see him step up like that. And like I said earlier, the special teams has been our best unit. So I'm not worried about this team, even with a tough schedule moving forward. They'll be just fine.
I'm also ready to have a Quinyon Mitchell conversation here. I think this dude
was
talking
yesterday. Dude, he was talking in Baker's face yesterday.
Quinyon Mitchell is one of the top 5 corners in the NFL. Like, he just
You thought he had a great game yesterday?
Yeah, you didn't?
No, I thought I was a lot of times he got away with tugging on jerseys
He
where it
did.
easily could have been called a PI. There was moments he did get beat. He had some good moments for sure. And
2 catches for 9
Tom
yards.
Brady also, and look, Tom Brady was awful yesterday. I mean, he could not have rooted for the Bucs any harder. But he was also pointing out a lot of times where he thought Quinyon Mitchell was antsy. And he was like, if you see an antsy quarterback or cornerback as a QB, you're targeting that guy because you don't like an antsy cornerback. So I didn't think he had a great game, honestly.
I thought he was excellent yesterday. And I thought anytime he was tested, he answered the call. I believe it was 2 receptions for 9 yards was officially what he lit up yesterday. Let me get his full stats up here. But I was very impressed with Quinyon Mitchell. And by the way, Cooper DeJean, don't let him get left out of this. One of the better tackling corners in football. Like the Iverson step over, the fact that he got flagged for that was absurd. But the hit that he made and the play that he made was awesome there. And as far as the full Quinyon Mitchell game stats yesterday, 9 targets, 2 receptions allowed, 6 yards, 6 yards allowed, 5 passes defended, and 5 tackles. I thought he was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, I mean the numbers are there. Like I said, I thought he got away with some stuff that you're not always going to get away with. But I love the energy. I love talking in Baker's face, trying to rattle Baker. I mean, he was all up in his face, and then the Tristan Wirfs came over and tried to and just like picked him up. It's like, all right, go to bat. You're like, this guy's like 200 pounds on you, but if you're gonna talk. I have no problem with that. I love that energy. He's really good. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't think yesterday was his best game.
Interesting. I was very impressed with Quinyon yesterday. I'm surprised to hear you say that, but we'll see. There's still plenty of time. I do think we're probably like a year or 2 away from having the real conversations of this guy should be in the Pat Surtain kind of talks. But I think he's on that trajectory, man. Like I do think he's that type of corner and pretty cool. Like Emeka Egbuka is awesome, dude. And
he's
the way,
unbelievable.
And I know he had an incredible game statistically. I don't think any of that came with Quinyon on him, and I thought he did an excellent job. So I'll leave it at that. But we'll move around the league a little bit here.
Real quick before we wrap it up on the Eagles discussion, I do think we should talk about AJ Brown.
Sure. Yes,
because this guy, I mean, this guy is a dream for Philadelphia media and Philadelphia radio stations like us, because he just, when they're winning and things are going so well, this guy somehow creates drama and content in ways that just should not exist. And he did it again yesterday with an Instagram post. And look, he wasn't even when the passing offense was clicking, he was not targeted really at all in that first half. Maybe he had 1 reception and 1 target, but he was not targeted, and the passing offense was clicking, though. I mean, Devontae Smith is who catches, Dallas Goedert who catches, Grant Calcaterra had big moments. So it wasn't like the passing offense wasn't doing well, but AJ wasn't really a part of it. And part of that is because of how they cover AJ Brown. They're always going to zone up on AJ Brown because of how talented he is, how much of a threat he is. And that creates openings for other guys. That creates openings for the other receivers and tight ends to make plays and make catches. And Jalen knows that, which is maybe why he's not always going in AJ's direction, because he commands so much defensive attention. So it's not like he was bad or anything, but he's not going to be featured in the passing offense for stretches, but he can't let that affect his attitude. Like we're 4-0 right now, and he's posting quotes like this most selfish me guy quotes in the world. Like he's upset because he's not getting the ball. And I get it. Look, all the best receivers in the league are divas, but Devontae Smith is not a diva at all. That guy can be a wide receiver 1. He's capable of it. He's on any other team, and he is just the best attitude. Doesn't matter if he has 100 plus yards and 10 catches or 1 catch for 8 yards. He has the same attitude and approach every single day, and that's what's so impressive at him. And it's a complete contrast from AJ Brown, who is the biggest me guy in the world. And look, I of course, what wide receiver doesn't want the ball? What wide receiver doesn't care about their own personal stats and accolades? But he also preaches constantly, it's only about the wins. I just want to see us play to our best potential. That offense was humming in the first half, and he's still upset because he wasn't really a part of it. Like this is just, it's just annoying. Like I love AJ, such a great player. Him and Jalen Hurts, when those guys are clicking, they're the potentially the best wide receiver quarterback duo in the league. But it's like, why are we making this about ourselves when we're 4-0? We just picked up a huge win against Tampa Bay on the road, a place we've never been able to win.
So to set the scene exactly here, the post that AJ Brown did throw up on his Twitter here was, quote, "If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way."
The irony of that quote is you just made the biggest scene. I think that tweet is 4 million views right now. So you did
Yeah.
exactly what that quote said not to do.
That's an excellent point. It's a really good point about that right there. I think in general, more is made about the AJ Brown situation than should be the case here. I would prefer that he does not poke the bear or do things like this whatsoever, because it is just way more harm than good any way that you do slice it here. But I mean, I have kind of a tolerance for star wide receivers acting like star wide receivers. Like it does not bother me to an extent here. And just from the salary cap perspective, AJ Brown ain't going anywhere this year, and I don't think anytime in the near future. So he can cause a scene if he wants. I don't think we're at risk for AJ Brown being frustrated to the point of actually wanting out.
They're not going to trade him. There's no question about that. I mean, the teams are calling about him this summer to Howie Roseman. It was reported, and Howie Roseman ended those calls very quickly. The Eagles' culture is strong enough to overcome stuff like this, which we saw last year. I mean, AJ Brown was doing the same stuff last year in his post-game comments constantly.
The passing, when asked what's wrong with the Eagles.
Yeah, he said the passing was kind of a shot at Hurts, and then Brandon Graham comes over the top and says that Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown don't have the best relationship. And the Eagles' culture was strong enough where obviously they overcame that, and the passing offense did more than enough in the playoffs, and they win the Super Bowl. But if AJ Brown's a part of a not great culture, a part of a team that doesn't have as strong as a culture that the Eagles do, this stuff can really erode a locker room. And one of these instances can really tailspin an organization and a season. But the Eagles' culture is strong enough where I'm not worried about it. And look, AJ's such a great player where you kind of deal with this stuff because of his talent. But it's just like, why are we doing it? Like, can we just put the phone down? Can we just like put our head down and go to work? And if there's stuff that you want to handle or have to address, do it internally. That's all I'm asking.
I would prefer that is the case for sure. Like I wish we weren't dealing with this whatsoever. I will also say, like, I think every guy's relationship is different, and like there is a legitimate like relationship between Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. These guys have known each other before they were in the NFL, and how long did they go back there? I wonder if that's just sort of like the way they communicate or are with each other is sort of like talking through quotes and saying their media shots here, or whatever the case may be. It's not probably the best direction. I don't think like that's what you should draw up in an organization, but I kind of wonder if that's just sort of the way that they go about it at this stage. They're both kind of unique thinkers in that way.
Yeah. Look, I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's just something that they now have to address and deal with. And it's like, why are we doing that when we're 4-0? And I think this team's on a great trajectory from everything we talked about, where they showed what they can do as a passing offense, as an offense as a whole, even if they haven't put a complete game together.
Yeah, and I will say the only thing I was kind of looking for as you were talking about, like, I do think this Eagles team still needs a complete performance, 2 halves of dominant
100%.
football here. Looking at their schedule ahead, it does not get much easier, man. That we're talking the Eagles from here, 4-0 on the season, moving forward, that they're facing the Denver Broncos, New York Giants, Minnesota Vikings, New York Giants, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears, Los Angeles Chargers, Las Vegas Raiders, Commanders, Bills, Commanders. Not really a ton of layups in there. So
yeah, I mean, we thought the Giants would be layups, but might not be anymore if this Jackson Dart thing is real. Even though without Malik Neighbors, I don't see that offense clicking. So look, I'm not worried about those Giant matchups, but one of them is on Thursday Night Football. That's always a tricky game. Broncos coming to town is not going to be easy.
No.
If Vikings, I don't think the Vikings are that good, but that's never an easy game. Hopefully Carson Wentz is still playing by then. That would be fun. But that Packers to the Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Bears, Chargers stretch, that 5-game stretch from the beginning of November till the beginning of December, that is a tough 5-game stretch where they could easily go 2-3 or 3-2 in that scenario. So you want to see them rack up these wins against the Giants and Vikings coming up.
Yeah, 100% there. So they've done the job to this point. They are 4-0. We'll keep it there and table the Eagles for the time being. But let's transition right over to those New York Giants right there. Probably the story of this week, I would say, was the Jackson Dart making an appearance here. I'm surprised still that the Giants pressed this button this early in the season. I thought this was going to be something that they kicked down the line, at least pushed until next week, where it would have been a Saints debut and a little bit of an easier matchup there for Jackson Dart. But nonetheless, I thought he looked good. They obviously got the victory. They defeated the Los Angeles Chargers there. What were your thoughts on the Jackson Dart debut?
I think it was good. Like, he got hit a lot, like
Yeah,
pressured a lot, sacked a lot. We know what that Giants offensive line is, and he stood in there and kind of showed his toughness. And that's something that people said about him coming out of the draft and why people loved him, how tough he was. So I thought he was good. He 54 rushing yards, so we know what he is. His athleticism was always a big plus for him at coming out of college. So he didn't do anything spectacularly with his arm. I mean, he's 13 for 20. 111 yards and a touchdown, but he was good. Like he was good in his debut against a really good defense. Like, don't forget, this Chargers defense is really good and it's limited a lot of great quarterbacks so far this year. So I was impressed with the debut. I do think a lot of times when there's not really much tape on a guy, it's really hard to prepare for them. Like, the Chargers had to go back to his college tape last year at Ole Miss to really kind of prepare for a guy like that. So I do think there's an advantage to the quarterback, even as a young guy making his debut. And that's why we see a lot of quarterbacks have great rookie seasons, and then sometimes they fall off as the rest of the league catches up and scouts them even more. We've seen that with CJ Stroud, of course, his rookie year. Maybe we're seeing that with Jaden Daniels a little bit before he got hurt. So I'm not like, oh, Jackson Dart's the future is the answer, but I liked him coming out of college. I think he can be a really good quarterback, and he displayed his toughness yesterday in a good debut.
Yeah, I was very impressed by Jackson Dart yesterday, and I was not a major Jackson Dart guy coming out of college. I will say he moved better yesterday than I remember him in college. I thought I was pretty impressed with the way that he hit the hole, made some reads, and showed the toughness. I think is the story yesterday. You can beat that dude up. He's going to get up and keep fighting, and that does inspire a roster behind him there. So shout out to Jackson Dart, and I also loved the excitement from Brian DeBull walking off the field here. That was you just saved my job.
He almost kissed the guy.
Yeah, he did. It did look like it was trending that direction there, but that was you just saved my job type of excitement there. Now, on the other end of that quarterback matchup,
okay. Go ahead.
Justin Herbert, man, not quite as pristine, not quite as MVP caliber as I've been told. To read off the stat line directly here, completed 23 of his 41 pass attempts for 203 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, added 24 yards with his leg. And the most important stat to me, which has always been the case, was the New York Giants beating Los Angeles Chargers 21-18. What do you got for your boy right here?
He was pressured on 47% of his dropbacks. Chargers offensive line was awful. Joe Alt, their left tackle, went out with an injury, and then his replacement, Austin Deculus, he allowed a team-high 6 pressures. I'm not excusing Justin Herbert completely, but his offensive line was not good against a really good pass rush. I mean, we're talking about the Giants' Jackson Dart and how great his debut was. The story of that game for me from the Giants was that pass rush, and we know how talented they are with Kayvon Thibodeau and all those guys. That is an unbelievably good pass rush, and they were getting to the quarterback and pressuring Justin Herbert. It's not an excuse, but the Chargers' offensive line was bad, and they didn't do Justin Herbert any favors. It wasn't Justin Herbert's best game. He's a great quarterback. Great quarterbacks sometimes aren't going to have their best games night in, night out. Lamar Jackson's had some poor games this year, and I hear still he's like the best quarterback to ever live, apparently, some people say. So, look, he didn't have his best game against on the road against a good opponent, traveling all the way.
Opponent.
I'm just racking up a good opponent in the Giants defense. That pass rush is unbelievable. With some injuries to the offensive line. And I'm just racking up the excuses as I go through it. But he traveled all the way from West, all the way from LA to New York. That is not an easy travel. That's further than like Dublin. That's further than where the Steelers went to Dublin and Ireland. That's not an easy travel. Going west to east is never easy. Time difference, time change, all of it. Wasn't the best game. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Don't get me wrong.
Ain't no such thing as halfway crooks, Sam Oshtry, that you can fake it for a couple weeks at a time. The truth always comes to light. Justin Herbert.
It's not a couple weeks at a time. He was great last season, too, in the regular season.
Yeah, he played 3 great weeks of football. And then, the mighty New York Giants just absolutely tearing down Justin Herbert. This is what I just need you to acknowledge in this conversation. I've given you that I understand the good Justin Herbert is in there, that he's looked good for 3 weeks of football. Do you see what I'm saying with the skittish Justin Herbert that looks like he's scared to play football, which I thought was on display yesterday?
Come on. He looks like he's scared to play football. No, I've never seen that for 1 second watching Justin Herbert. I think he was running for his life, and there was moments of skittishness. But that's not that you see that with any quarterback when the defensive line is getting to them. He's getting pressured every single drop back. The offensive line was awful. I think you see that skittishness with anybody who in
I don't think you do
like that. Say it again.
I don't think you do. Like the skittishness, skittish is the word I would use for Herbert, the bad Justin Herbert there. And that's something that like completely turns me off to him as a quarterback. That when things are going south, I see that dude looking like he wants no part of it. And that's sort of for the first time this season, I thought that's the Justin Herbert we saw.
He's led so many game-winning drives. He constantly comes back in the fourth quarter. It's not like the guy has the guy has. I think it was 13. I think I read it yesterday. It was 13 game-winning drives in his career.
Hey, what happened yesterday, Sam Oshtry? Did he have a chance?
He didn't get it done. It's not 100% hit rate. That's just the nature of the business and nature of sports. He didn't have his best game yesterday. He didn't have his best stuff. The offensive line, like I said, was awful. Dealing with a replacement left tackle who was terrible. He was getting pressured on all his dropbacks. Half of his dropbacks, which is an absurd rate. It wasn't his best game, but I'm not like, oh, Justin Herbert, this one bad game. You see, you're just capitalizing on one bad game, but you don't apologize when he has these unbelievable games like he did the first 3 weeks of the season against 3 straight divisional opponents, which is really tough to do.
I think my message has consistently been just wait, just give it time. And then some time has passed by, and like that's what I saw yesterday. And by the way, I want it clear that what was the first thing we talked about with the Eagles was Lane Johnson getting injured. We've got, Tyler Steen going down yesterday.
Jalen Hurts didn't complete a pass in the second half. Like, what do you want to say? They did not complete a single pass in the second half. The Eagles were the first team in 2+ years that hadn't completed a pass in a half.
That they completed 0. That's a true stat.
0. They were 0 for 8.
Wow, I didn't realize it was 0-0. But yeah, we can keep it moving on the Justin Herbert conversation.
I just think like a lot of quarterbacks have moments like that. Like Baker's interception yesterday in the red zone was awful. I mean, like Baker's a great quarterback. Like I trust Baker a lot. He had an awful moment, awful interception, bad decision. Quarterbacks make those plays sometimes where you're not going to be perfect. It's just impossible to be. And Justin Herbert's those picks weren't great, but again, those happen. He had been pretty good at not turning the ball over. 1 pick coming into that game before that, so it's a blip on the radar for his MVP campaign.
I respect the commitment there. We'll see what happens. They'll keep rocking on their season there. I'll throw a little bit more of a wider question at you than just everything that we kind of taken it from that direction there. The most impressive win yesterday, looking across the slate, who do you think changed your mind the most on who they are as a football team this week?
Yeah, I thought the Giants, like we just talked about the game, so I don't want to go too deep in it, but like the Giants win was really impressive because that pass rush finally came alive. Obviously, they debut their new quarterback, a first-round pick that they hope is the future of their franchise. So Chargers are a really good team. I mean, they're a playoff team. I think they still will win that AFC West. So that's a monstrous win for the Giants. So I think that was the best win. I was prepared to say the Cowboys over the Packers, but I mean, if you want to say best tie, maybe, because the Cowboys were really good yesterday.
They were.
I don't know if you want to dive into that game, but what was your best win?
For my best win was the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. That I was finally like full skeptic of this Chiefs team. Like legitimately, when you look at what they brought to the table the first 3 weeks, there was nothing offensively that they could consistently rely on. No running game. The pass catchers weren't good enough. And that Ravens team I viewed as legitimately good going into yesterday here. The Chiefs took care of business. That was a primetime Mahomes kind of classic performance there that I think they needed to see within themselves. They're right back in that Super Bowl contending mix and catapulted right back in there. So to me, the Chiefs, I was most impressed with yesterday. Any thoughts on that, or I'm game dive into the Cowboys game?
Yeah, so I had worse loss as the Ravens.
Okay.
So kind of similar tone. I thought that was an impressive win for the Chiefs too, and they needed it. And we saw Xavier Worthy's impact in his return. And then with Rashee Rice coming back, the sky is really the limit for this passing offense when you have Patrick Mahomes back there, because he had no weapons. I mean, Travis Kelce's a non-factor at this point. He's no downfield weapons. Thornton had some good plays, but he also had some drops, deep ball drops this season so far. So this Chiefs offense was really struggling, and now you finally get Xavier Worthy back, who you wanted, and Rashee Rice is coming back in a few weeks as well. And this passing offense and this offense as a whole can really elevate their game where they're back to contending status. So I get all your points of why it was definitely a huge win for the Chiefs. Worst loss for the Ravens because they're 1-3.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team that with Lamar Jackson has historically started poor, but like they were 2-2 last year, and now it's the defense. It's really the defense for this Ravens. I believe the stat is that they gave up. Yeah, they've given up 133 points through 4 games. That's the most points through four games they've given up in franchise history. Their defense has been awful, and part of it's injuries. That they were down 6 starters from what they started the year out last night or yesterday. So like more than half of their starting defense from the start of the season wasn't playing. Like obviously Kyle Van Noy, all these guys are such critical, not just players, but leaders for that defense. And that's a big loss. We don't know exactly when those guys are going to come back. I think the Ravens are going to be fine. I think they're going to make the playoffs. But 1-3 start to the season is not good. And that was a huge opportunity against the Chiefs. And now they're in a massive hole.
Yeah, big time there. And I knew you kind of skated by it, but Lamar Jackson, I think there needs to be a little bit of discussion about that performance yesterday, because
was not great.
To just give the raw numbers here, completed 14 of 20 for 147 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times, also lost a fumble there. If you want to talk looking skittish a little bit, I saw that in Lamar yesterday, which is not anything I want to see ever in a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the fumble, he ran into his center. Like, then he lost the ball. The Ravens are 7-11 in games where Lamar Jackson has turned the ball over at least, or turned the ball over multiple times. If the Ravens turn the ball over, if Lamar Jackson's turning the ball over, they're just not going to be a legitimate threat in the AFC. I think they're fine. I think Lamar Jackson's fine, but this is not the Lamar Jackson we saw the last couple seasons when he was in the MVP conversation. He's been less bad for his standards so far this year. And when the Ravens defense has been as awful as it's been, granted against really good competition, they played the Bills and Josh Allen and the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. But if this Ravens defense is going to be injured and not great, you're going to need that offense to score 30-plus points, what we're seeing with the Cowboys situation right now and Dak Prescott. And if he's not playing well, this Ravens team could get in an even further hole.
Yeah, and obviously it's a sky-high standard we are holding him to, that a bad Lamar Jackson still gives you a better chance than the best days for a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL here. But the point still remains that there are questions that need to be answered by this dude in the postseason. And performances like yesterday just aren't ones that are going to inspire confidence in me that this will change. That I did think he looked rattled yesterday. I did think he looked flustered. And
yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have always had their number. Like Steve Pagnolia was drawing up all these blitzes. I mean, they were blitzing from every which way, and he's obviously a blitz-happy coordinator.
Yeah.
But, I mean, their safety was blitzing, their corner blitzing. It was from everywhere, and he's always just given Lamar Jackson problems, and that's been a hump that Lamar Jackson has never got over his career.
Yeah. So we'll be interesting there. Are you out on the Ravens? Do you think they've dug themselves too deep of a hole? You still think this team's going to be fine?
Out in the sense that they'll be in the playoffs? I think they'll be in the playoffs. Okay. I think they're a playoff team. You know, the division is the Browns and the Bengals aren't a factor anymore. If Joe Burrow was healthy, it'd be different. The Steelers, I like them. I'm not sold on the Steelers yet. We can talk about that game in Dublin, but I'm not sold on the Steelers. So I still think the Ravens can make the playoffs and even win the division. As a threat to win the AFC, not right now. The Chiefs I have over them. The Bills I definitely have over them. The Chargers I still have over them at this point. So I'm not like this Ravens team can make the Super Bowl, but they'll be in the playoffs. And what we've seen every year from Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson is that team has gotten way better as the years gone on. They've had really bad Septembers the last few seasons.
Yeah, I'm with you that I think they will find themselves a spot into the playoffs and they'll scrap their way in there. But my level of confidence that this year could be different from the Ravens for getting over the hump just really isn't there. That I don't see it with this current team. Maybe the defense figures some things out during the second half of the season as they get more healthy and it comes together. But I definitely have some concerns about Baltimore in a way that I did not remotely expect to be the case this early in the season here. But let's transition over to that early morning matchup that you mentioned. The Pittsburgh Steelers getting a win over the Minnesota Vikings. And Sam, I'll just lead with my number one takeaway from that game. I had Carson Wentz PTSD all over the place. It was the full experience watching him in a Vikings jersey there. What were your thoughts on that game?
It really was, because he wasn't bad at all. I mean, I didn't think he was bad for most of that game. He threw for 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it's the interceptions and it's just the awful clock management late in that game that he completely botched. The delay of game, just bad picks where it's inexcusable decisions. And that's the Carson Wentz experience. We know better than anyone. We know the talent. Like, the talent is there. He has an unbelievable arm when he's dealing, but he also just makes such awful decisions that sets his team back and his offense back. So it was a full Carson Wentz experience. You can win with him. The Vikings can win games with him, and we saw it last week when they dominated with him as the quarterback. But it's just, you're never going to be a legitimate threat with Carson Wentz under center. But he's a good backup quarterback in this league at this point. My biggest takeaway is from the Steelers, and I was kind of, I didn't know exactly where to go with the Steelers because I was impressed with them, impressed with Aaron Rodgers, but a lot of those plays that he was doing or his passes that he was completing were such short yard situations where I don't think he had a single completion over 20 yards down the field or even over 15 yards down the field. He was getting the ball out faster. I think they said on the broadcast the stat was he was getting the ball out faster than he had since 2016. It was immediate actions to just get the ball out of his hands. Don't even let the pass rush or the pressures come. They don't really trust the offensive line that much. And so I thought Aaron Rodgers was good, but like that's not really sustainable when you're just throwing the ball in less than 2.5 seconds every single time for these really short yardage gains. And it worked yesterday, but then you kind of saw their offense stall out, and they don't really generate many explosive plays. So I think the Steelers are a good team. I think they're going to be in the playoffs, but I wasn't particularly enthralled with that win yesterday.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are exactly what they've been for the past 10 years here. They're going to be a slightly above 500 football team and a first-round exit in the postseason would be my prediction there. Now, that could change depending on the matchup and how things shake out, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers raises the ceiling of this team. They beat the Vikings with Carson Wentz. It's another win to add to Mike Tomlin's resume, and as he fights to stay above 500 for another year in his career here. I like Mike Tomlin. I give him respect. I give this team respect, but I don't think this team is in any way, shape, or form any sort of contender.
Mike Tomlin had one of the weirdest decisions ever when he punted the ball on their own 39-yard line. It was fourth and like inches, not less than a yard, fourth and inches. They punt the ball, take a delay of game, then punt the ball and pin the Vikings. And it ended up working out. He trusted his defense, but like,
that's like Tomlin.
Such little confidence in your offense to not go for that on fourth and inches and effectively end the game, not even give Vikings an opportunity to get the ball back. It was one of the more bizarre, conservative, really just soft decisions that we've seen. But Mike Tomlin's obviously a great coach.
I agree. I would have gone for it on that play there. That's also kind of who Mike Tomlin is, though. He's like the anti-Dan Campbell in terms of he's going to be ultra conservative. He's going to punt the ball on fourth down. And I kind of can respect when you have your exact playbook that what you're going to do, you keep sticking with it in the way that he did. But yeah, I mean, it worked out for him yesterday. I like Mike Tomlin. I have a ton of respect for the success that he's had. I think there are like legitimate, like, I mean, I guess it's unfair to hold him against it because he needs a quarterback for me to really go in on him for not being able to elevate a team to a Super Bowl contender. But they feel very Penn State-like to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, no, because they got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, not Drew Aller. I do trust Aaron Rodgers, I think, more than you do, where he's been good this year. I mean, he hasn't been like some spectacular talent, but he's been good. And like we talked about earlier, getting the ball out really quick to DK Metcalf and just letting him rack up yards after the catch was really impressive. Their ceiling definitely has raised with Aaron Rodgers because he's capable of vintage performances like that. And not a lot of quarterbacks can get the ball out as quick as he was yesterday. I just don't think it's sustainable when they're not generating explosive plays. But I do think he's capable of a vintage performance in a playoff game because they'll be in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure about that. I do think that I would trust Aaron Rodgers in a way that the Steelers have always been a shoe and lost in the playoffs because they've never had a trustworthy quarterback. It is different with Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly an upgrade over Kenny Pickett and some of the other guys that
Justin
we've seen.
Fields.
Yeah, Justin Fields. Well, some of the other guys we've seen cycle through. Mason Rudolph had his day in the sun there. So yeah, well, I'll give you that. I have two nominations for best loss for this week. Number one, I want to throw out there the New Orleans Saints kind of hung in there with the Bills for a little bit. That the game overall finished with a score of 31-19. It was close throughout. That I believe halftime it was 14-10 in that matchup there. The Saints are a bad football team, don't get me wrong, but they are not like clear-cut worst team in the NFL the way I think that it was talked about coming into the season. The Titans.
Yeah, that's not a bad call.
Yeah,
as those two teams are right there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sticking up saying the Saints are good, but I think there is a level of competency with the organization that I did not expect coming into the year. You have any takeaways on that?
Not really. It kind of just felt like a letdown spot against an awful opponent coming in. Bills is over 2 touchdown favorites, biggest spread of the season so far, and the Saints hang in there. And Spencer Rattler was pretty good, honestly. So not really much takeaway. I mean, the Saints and the Titans are the 2 worst teams in the NFL. Usually easy wins. Who knows how many wins they'll win collectively this year? Maybe like 3 or 4 if they're lucky. So not much to take away. It was just a weird spot for the Bills, who are still the best team in the AFC for me.
The other best loss that I will throw in there is my Indianapolis Colts 20-27 loss to the hands of the Rams there. I was okay with that loss from a Colts perspective. I was okay with that Daniel Jones performance from a Daniel Jones perspective here. That's a respectable loss. That Matt Stafford carved them up for 350 and 3 touchdowns. They hung in there from start to finish.
I mean, how are you okay with that? But you're killing Justin Herbert for 2 picks. They both had 2 picks.
Well, the Rams and the Giants are two different opponents, Mr. Conversation.
The Giants defense was probably better yesterday. That pass rush was unbelievable.
Yeah, sure, but they're the New York Giants, and the Rams are talked about as a legitimate NFC threat. Yeah. The Giants are talked about as a team that could be picking in the top 5.
Yeah, there's nothing about that game that was like off the Colts or Daniel Jones train. It was we expected those. I mean, we saw Daniel Jones doing a lot of media last week. I mean, he was on every podcast and show imaginable, and that was because that's when you want to capitalize. When he's 3-0, he's playing really well before the losses start to pile up. And it's not a knock on him or the Colts. It was just they didn't play the best schedule, and they weren't going to go undefeated. Daniel Jones, it wasn't great yesterday, but I still have confidence in him and the Colts to be a playoff team and still rack up a lot of wins throughout the year. But the Rams were my survivor play, and I got really nervous for a second there because I thought the Colts were going to pull off that upset. Of course, the Rams, after how they lost last week, they needed that win. That was a desperate spot for them, and they come in with a final drive to win that game. But yeah, the Rams are still one of the best teams in the league to me.
Yeah, I rolled with the Detroit Lions for my survivor pool pick yesterday. So we're through 4 weeks here.
Sam, that was easy. Yeah, we're through September.
Yeah,
that's something to be proud of.
It's been years since I've made it this far. The past 2 years, I've gotten out in week 1 here. So it feels good to have some stake in the game. Yeah. I want to dig in a little bit more on the Packers Cowboys. I got a couple questions about this for you. For starters, I was a little underwhelmed by the Micah Parsons pomp and circumstance here. I wanted to see a moment where Micah was sacking Dak and celebrating at Jerry or something like it. We did not really get that. Sure, he did have the sort of sack that was essentially a takedown for no gain that likely did save a touchdown and ultimately secured a tie there. Like, Micah was not a non-factor in the game whatsoever. But I expected a little bit more from Micah Parsons last night, and I didn't really feel the emotion from him in the way that I expected.
Not just the emotion, he was a non-factor. I mean, he was a non-factor in that game. Before that overtime, he only had 2 assisted tackles. He even have a solo tackle on his resume in that game yesterday. We're talking about one of the best defensive players in the league, a guy who's a favorite for defensive player of the year. He ended up getting the sack in overtime, which was big, but he was a non-factor. You didn't feel his presence. And obviously the Cowboys were double teaming and doing a lot of things to prevent him from being a factor. But it was not the return that I think everyone expected against his former team. You thought the juice would be a little higher. He was a non-factor, but I was so impressed with the Cowboys yesterday and that Cowboys offense. And we know what this defense is. Cowboys have one of the worst passing defense in the league, which is anybody can sit back there in the pocket and throw for 1 million yards against them. We saw Russell Wilson throw for 450 yards a couple weeks ago against the Cowboys, and then he gets benched the week after that because of how bad he is. Caleb Williams had a great game against the Cowboys last week. Jordan Love balled out against the Cowboys. I think you or I could sit back there in the pocket against the Cowboys defense and throw for 1 million yards because their defense is that awful. They put no pressure on the quarterback, and their passing defense is really bad. But because of that, their offense has to be spectacular. And this was one of those Dak Prescott games where you're reminded of like how good this guy can be and his potential, and why people talked about him a few years ago as an MVP candidate, as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, because he was phenomenal yesterday and he was carving up a really good Packers defense. The problem is that Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense have to score 40-plus points. I mean, the game ended 40-40. They have to score 40-plus points because their defense is that bad for them to win games, which is why the Cowboys aren't a real factor. But it was more about Dak Prescott and that Cowboys offense against a really good defense. Packers have been one of the best teams in the league through 3 weeks, and Dak Prescott carved them up. So I was really impressed with him in that Cowboys offense, but it didn't matter that much because their defense is that bad.
Yeah, this is the best football that Dak Prescott's played in several years to this point. That I've been really impressed with the way that he's gone about things and elevated this offense. And another question I want to bring up for you, Sam, is as I was watching last night, one of the takeaways I had, how many wide receivers in the NFL are better than George Pickens? Because I think the number is lower than a lot of people would guess.
Yeah, he's really good. I mean, you can make the claim for him as like a top 10 to 12 guy. He had some huge catches down the stretch of that game. He was phenomenal. Like that, there's nothing more to say.
Yeah, I think he's probably a top 15 wide receiver, and he's been talented. Like, he had 1,000 yards with the Steelers. He's never had less than 800 in his career. It's been some attitude/personality stuff that's popped in the way. And the other thing that I don't think he's gotten really enough grace for is the level of quarterback play that he's put up with in his career to this point. Definitely. He's still put up numbers with like a rotating, whoever's at quarterback for the Steelers. The same guys we just talked about, the Kenny Pickett's, the Mason Rudolphs, the Justin Fields here. Like, having Dak Prescott to sling him the football, CeeDee Lamb's obviously still CeeDee Lamb, but I think as long as he's out, Pickens should be looked at as like one of the top wide receivers in football, and I think his number is going to be looking pretty special at the end of the season.
Are we concerned a little bit about the Packers at this point? Because it was heading into this week, it was their offense was kind of a concern. And it was their defense that had been carrying them and been great. And they obviously lose to the Browns last week. Game they just did not come ready to play. You expect a good bounce back, Micah Parsons' debut. And their offense was great, but any offense is good against the Cowboys defense, as we just talked about. It was their defense that really struggled. They could not pressure Dak Prescott at all. Just to read some stats for you, he was pressured only 5 of 24 dropbacks through 3 quarters, and ended up being pressured only 14 of 41 dropbacks. That's 34%. That is a really low pressure rate for a great defensive front in the Packers. They could just not get to the quarterback, and that's why, and because of the Cowboys' protection, how great they were, and how much time Dak Prescott had back there, he was carving them up all day. So it was the defense that was really concerning for me. And talk about a team that's not put a complete game together. It's been the Cowboys. One unit, whatever it is, has not been great. They lose to the Browns last week, and then they tie the Cowboys this week, which to me, it's a loss. Like this is a loss if you're talking about the tie, and we'll see how it affects the standings. But they're in a really good division with the Lions, who are playing really well and everything. So I'm a little concerned about the Packers, who again were my Super Bowl pick coming into the year.
Yeah, and I'm surprised because I thought Jordan Love looked pretty good last night, and anyone can against that Cowboys defense, as you mentioned. Offensively, I don't really have any issues. Romeo Doubs, scoring 3 touchdowns is pretty nuts there. They're still going to get more healthy with Jaden Reed and Christian Watson coming back there. Josh Jacobs is who he is. But that defensive unit has to be at least good, and I'm not sure that it is. I kind of do wonder if maybe
the personnel's there, but for whatever reason, it wasn't. They didn't play well.
Statistically, they have been until this week. That they still coming into the week, I believe they were 3rd in points allowed, 1st in yardage allowed to this point. That they've been a top 10 team in just about every metric there. But Dak Prescott had no issues covering them up, and sure, Dak can do that. Like he's not a nobody, but yeah, my level of panic certainly increased with the Green Bay Packers. I don't think they can be viewed in the same tier as a team like the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right now, for sure, I think there's definitely a gap between the Eagles and like the Rams and the Packers and those other NFC contenders. But again, just why the reason I'm not completely off the Packers bandwagon is because what did we see last year with the Eagles? They started out 2-2. Nobody thought for a second that team could win the Super Bowl. They didn't even have an identity offensively. And then, of course, they go into a bye and they rip off all these wins, and they're the best team in the NFL, and they dominate their way to a Super Bowl. It's 1 month into the season. I think the Packers are talented enough. I think they're well coached enough where I will trust them. They've had some issues with 4th quarter leads too, where they allow teams to come back. So that's,
and by the way, very easily could have a loss if that ball hung in the air for 1 extra second in overtime, because their clock management
that was awful. That was just Jordan Love just being just a boneheaded decision by Jordan Love. I don't know what he was thinking. Obviously, you want them to have one more. He wanted them to have one more play. It's a 3rd down. You have one more opportunity to try to score. But Jesus, that was close. If that ball, you're right. If that ball was tipped in the air, there's 0 seconds on the clock, and the Packers lose that game. Of course, it's batted down. There's 1 second remaining, and
barely.
And the Packers can kick a field goal to tie the game. But that was awful clock management. But again, this team has time to find an identity. They're talented enough, well coached enough. They have time to find an identity like the Eagles did last year. So I'm not overly concerned with the Packers, but it has not been pretty through the first month of the season.
Yeah, and I'll also note that this tie is going to mess up all of our calculations from playoff seedings for the rest of the season here. This is going to be a problem. This is going to mess with my brain for the rest of the year of having to factor in, oh, wait, they've got a tie. We're going to have to do it for both the Packers and Cowboys. So, yeah, unbelievable there.
Both divisions that they're in are unbelievable now. We know what the NFC North is, but now if the Giants are going to be a threat, obviously we know the Commanders are. I'm not that worried about. The Cowboys are still good, even though they're 1-2-1. Eagles, of course, are the team to beat and would be the first NFC East repeat champion since 2004, over 2 decades. But this division is really good.
Yeah, absolutely there. So we'll see how things play out. Any final thoughts on this or anything else in the NFL slate before we give 2 picks for tonight's game and get out of here?
Yeah, I don't think so. That's all I got, really.
All right, well, let's roll into another Monday night doubleheader before me and Sam wrap up here on Fox Sports The Gambler. At 7:15, we have the Jets and Dolphins, and then at 8:15, the Bengals and Broncos. And I will note before I throw this your way, I'm sick of the doubleheader Monday night. I get the appeal. I understand what you're trying to do here. there is something about Monday Night Football being a standalone spot to me that I'd have no problem with red zone. I love it Sunday when it's as much football as possible. I'm cool with just one game in the Monday slate. So just to throw that out there. But we'll start with the 7:15 game, the early slate between the Jets and Dolphins there. Miami enters as 2.5-point favorites. 44.5 is the number on the game total. What's your feel for this game?
Also, two just bad Monday Night Football matchups. And we're talking about an 0-3 matchup between the Jets and Dolphins.
Yep.
And what could have been a good matchup between the Broncos and Bengals, but the Bengals stink without Joe Burrow. So just two bad games Monday night, too. I'm going to lean the Jets on the road plus 2.5 because I just can't trust the Dolphins as favorites. I don't, at this point in this organization, where they are, how their culture is eroded, how Mike McDaniel is going to be fired sooner than later at this point. And look, they showed some fight their last couple of games after starting the year out really poorly. But the Jets as an underdog, I'm just not taking the Dolphins favorite anywhere. And then, look, I think the Broncos win the game, but I think we could see some better performance from Jake Browning in a way we did not last week where he struggled. So 7.5 is a lot of points. Like I think the Broncos win the game at home, but do I think they win by more than a touchdown? No. So I'll take the Bengals 7.5.
Yeah, I think I see things mostly the same way as you. For the Jets logic, for sure, that I just don't think the Dolphins should be favored against just about anyone right now. And I do have a little bit of faith in that Jets defense there. So I would roll the dice with New York, more of a fade the Dolphins sort of spot there. I kind of worry about this Denver defense being the real deal and really bothersome to Jake Browning, though. I could see this one getting ugly in favor of Denver, and they also desperately need to lay the hammer on somebody. This is a team that I was buying some stock in coming into the year because of that defense and because of what Bo Nix looked like last year. So far, Bo Nix has looked like he's regressed a little bit from a decision-making standpoint. The Broncos, I think themselves need a convincing performance on the field, and I do hope they get it. They have the opportunity to do so, so I think I do lean towards the minus 7.5.
The one positive is the Broncos are playing Monday night, and then they're coming to Philly Sunday. So Philly has an advantage on the short week for the Broncos, and they have to travel west to east. So that's the one advantage. So you hope it's kind of a hard-fought, close game as opposed to the Broncos just running away with it.
Yeah. So we'll take that. We'll put that in the back pocket, and I will note the first Eagles win without a tush push, and who knows how long at this point. So everybody can stop talking about that.
We got creative. I love that it probably was a thing that we're just so much better than everyone else. We're too good. Let's just show that we don't actually need the tush push to score and move the ball in short yardage situations. And they didn't. They got super creative, and they were still unstoppable because that offensive line is that great, and their play callers and their weapons are that great. It doesn't matter. Throw the tush push out the door. You're not as good of a team as the Eagles, so you won't stop them in short yardage situations.
Hell yeah. So love that. Love that they got another one in the books there. Any other final thoughts for the weekend before we wrap up here, Sam Oshtry?
I don't think so. Jalen Hurts has won 18 straight games that he started and finished.
The Eagles have not lost a game in over a calendar year that Jalen Hurts has started and finished.
That's not humanly possible. That doesn't happen in the NFL. People lose. There's so much randomness and other factors, injuries, whatever it is that contribute to losses. You don't win that much in the NFL. Somehow Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni have found a way to win no matter what. Comebacks, improbable victories, whatever it is. The guy is the greatest winner in the NFL. Even Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and all these other great quarterbacks who are better quarterbacks than Jalen Hurts, don't get me wrong. But those guys find ways to lose games sometimes. Jalen Hurts has not lost in over a calendar year. 18, like you just said, 18 straight wins where he started and finished the game. That he's going to start losing, and I think we take for granted sometimes how much we win because losses are going to happen. That's just the nature of the league. But that's an unbelievable record that he's on right now.
Yeah, you're speaking my language a little bit with that one, Sam. It does blow my mind the amount of people who sit there and watch football every single week and say that there's multiple quarterbacks they would prefer from Jalen Hurts. It does absolutely blow my mind. The dude's a winner. He gets the job done, and that's going to continue to be the case. So we're going to keep riding that wave right here on Fox Sports The Gambler and in Philadelphia here. Of our 4-0 Eagles will continue prodding along on the season. So appreciate each one of you guys for hanging with us today. Make sure you keep it locked on the dial right here on Fox Sports The Gambler. And me and Sam will be back talking. I'll be back Saturday 1 to 3. Be on with Sean Brace tomorrow as well. Sam popping on throughout the week. We'll be on Thursday. So make sure to stay tuned for everything. Like, subscribe wherever you're listening. Be back. Talk with you next time.